This travel dock will let you connect everything to your USB-C computer. Let's check it out. Dave Taylor here, and I'm looking at another USB-C dock. This is the OWC USB-C Travel Dock, and it's actually a pretty slick little device. It has USB 3 on the side, an SD card reader, a USB-C pass-through power port on the front, and then on the other side it has HDMI and again USB 3. So let me give you some actual specs, right? So the USB-C is, ready for this? USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type C. The pass-through supposedly handles up to 100 watts, but we're going to test it and you'll see it steps it down and it actually needs some power out of that so it can function. So it goes, the USB 3, what I call USB 3, they call USB 3.1 Gen 1 Type A. So you know that as the classic rectangular connection. And then let's see, the SD card reader is UHS-2 compatible, which is to say you put in an SD card from anything but the most fancy, super expensive 4K RED camera, and it'll work fine. And then the HDMI on this side is an HDMI 2.0, which supports 4K at 30 Hertz. Now, let's real quick step through some close-ups of each of the sides. This is the first side, USB 3 and HDMI. Second side is just USB-C. This is the power pass-through, which is what that cryptic symbol means. The third side is SD card and USB 3. And there's nothing on the fourth side, but there is something on the bottom. This is really cool. This is the second generation of their travel dock because this one includes a built-in USB-C cable. And this is super helpful. So you just pop this out and now you're ready to go. So I am going to plug it into my MacBook Pro and then we're going to just start plugging things in, right? So let's see. I'm going to start with power because you always need power, right? So I have this hooked up to my 87 watt Apple charger. Now, the way to tell how your charger is working is you go into About My Mac and then you say System Report. There's other ways to get there. That's the easy one. Go to Power. And this is really interesting. You can see that it's identified as an 87 watt charger, but the computer's telling me it's only using 60 watts. So then the question is, well, how many watts is it using when it's actually going through the dock? And as you can see, that steps down just a couple of watts. So I'm not sure why the 87 watt is only used at 60 watts, but running it through this dock subtracts a couple of watts. That probably just means a couple more minutes for a full charge, but everything's powered. Now let's see what else I can plug in. So HDMI, you'll notice there's a screen behind me. If this works, that screen should hopefully come on. Let's see what happens. I can see in my playback monitor. And there it is. So that monitor is on and working off of this. Then I have a Western Digital My Passport Air with a USB 3 connection. I will plug that in and that'll show up on my desktop. We're going to show and do a little speed test too in a second. Then I have a SanDisk SD card. Unplug that in. My goal is to use every port simultaneously because why not, right? That's what we have it for. And then finally, I'm going to tap that other USB port so I can just charge my iPhone while we're doing this. And let's see, it is charging. So at least we know that's a hot port. That is pretty important. So now we got everything hooked up. It looks a little bit like an octopus, but it's so neat and so convenient. So now let me go and I'm going to switch to showing you what's on my Mac, and then we're going to run some speed tests, and then I'll come back. Okay, the Passport Air has shown up, and I'm going to just go ahead and drag an 800 megabyte file off of it onto my desktop. We'll see how fast that is. And this is usually really fast. Reading is typically faster than writing. That was nice and speedy. Now let's copy an 820 megabyte file back onto the drive. So we're doing those bidirectional writes. And that's pretty zippy too. Now let's close this. We have these handy files. And now this is the SD card. Oops, let me get that in the right place. And it is in fact from a camera, which is what the DCIM is. And now we're going to just take this larger file, the 820 meg, and copy it onto the SD card, and let's see how long that takes. So that's definitely slower than the hard drive is, which is probably not super surprising because SD cards, depending on their speed, it's super complicated to figure out speed, but depending on their speed, they're going to work at different rates. So this one takes about a minute to copy. Meanwhile, let's see what else is going on. So can I access the other drive? Yep, that all looks good. Can I jump around? That sure looks like it's a nice responsive speed on the other drive while this one's still copying. And let's see, I'm gonna just get this one out entirely. And we probably don't need to finish the copy, but actually let me show you real quick how to get to that power info. So go about this Mac, and then from there, system report. And then in the system report, go down to, whoops, let's make sure we can see the copy. Let's see, here's that copy status window. So now, go down to where it says power, and then you scroll down just a little bit, and there's AC charger. So you can see that I'm getting 52 of my 60 watts of power by using the travel dock. So let's just wait. It's just about done with the copy. I'm not sure why we need to wait, but hey, it's a couple more seconds, right? So just about done with that. And by the way, in this hardware report, there's a ton of other interesting information. It's definitely worth poking around and looking at what's there. Lots of interesting stuff. Okay, we're going to close this. We're going to close the about, and then the copy's done too. So that's great. Let's switch back to me being on camera. So interesting results. I mean, it's decent, it's fast, everything does seem to be working. A little curious why it's dropping 8 watts out of my power. I'm curious why my Mac isn't using 87 watts anyway when it's plugged in directly. Be that as it may, this is definitely working. And I'm feeling just the tiniest bit of warmth. There's obviously some circuitry in here, and the power, that 8 watts is going somewhere. It's probably doing something and powering the circuit board. Meanwhile, my HDMI has been working just fine. So everything's working. My phone is still charging. It's almost charged. That's good. So now, turns out there's one more fun little thing, is that as it says on the front of the box, OWC has heard from customers that it's a pain to eject everything. So they have this new dock ejector. So now let's switch back to my computer long enough to eject everything. Well, my desktop's a little sloppy, but notice there's this icon in the menu bar. I'm going to click on it and eject volumes. And now let's see what happens on the left side with those 2 volumes. Ejecting all volumes. Done. Boom. Well, that's super easy, actually. That's totally worth downloading, even if you're not going to get an OWC. But you should, because this is actually a pretty nice travel dock. So now that everything's unconnected, I can unplug things, right, without any issues. So I'm going to unplug everything, and I'm even going to unplug the power. You ready for this? Ooh, unplugged the power. So now let's get this maximally neat by putting this in the bottom. In fact, I can just close my computer. And what I've found is if you put it in nose first and then just sort of push everything down after that, it's a little easier. And so there's my USB-C connector cord on the back. And then this is the OWC USB-C Travel Dock. All in all, a pretty solid piece of hardware. You know, as with all of these, it takes a little bit of juice to be able to actually run the thing. So when I plug in that power, it definitely leaches off a little bit, but I'm not hugely worried about that. Generally speaking, I think these are just for convenience. Now, would it be nice if I had, for example, an HDMI port on my computer? Well, yeah, that'd be nice, but I don't. So having to use something like this with HDMI on it is not the end of the world. It's small, it's convenient, it has a built-in cable, super helpful. Pay attention when you go onto something like Amazon. They still have first-gen OWC travel docks, and those don't have the cable. And the way you can tell is they don't have the little black base plate on them. So that's where it stores the cable, and it's totally worth a few extra bucks to get that. So Speaking of which, what we have left to talk about is the price. But before we get to the price, if I can ask for you to tap or click on that little red subscribe button in the lower right corner and subscribe to my channel, I sure appreciate that. And give me some feedback. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you think I should have tested or whether you appreciate the tests that I did so that I know how to continue to refine and improve my videos. Makes sense, right? Cool. Now, kind of wish there was a logo on the front, but there isn't, so I guess this is the orientation we'll use. So this is the OWC USB-C Travel Dock, and it is $54.99 at Amazon.com, but shop around a little bit. I found it for a couple of bucks cheaper in various other venues. Worth looking at, but either way, if you're looking for a USB-C dock and you want something that can travel with you with that handy built-in cable, this is definitely an option to explore. And with that, I'm going to plug everything back in, which means I'll hope to see you in my next video.